Okay, it's recording to the cloud. We'll see, because my karma with technology is always fascinating. So that's our agenda for today, our goals, and I think we can meet all of those in the next 50 minutes. So this is the Halpin Method. You don't have to memorize this, you don't even have to know it, but it's just all the soft skills about getting people in roles that are aligned with their strengths. I'm passionate about that, given that I spent almost 12 years, not counting my dad's firm. I spent 12 years as a professional in those environments. It was not good. And really how to create a work environment where people feel safe to step up and speak up. And that's what ignites innovation. It's not because management knows or their strategy is so brilliant, although it's probably pretty darn good, but it's the frontline people who can ignite innovation because they feel safe to bring up ideas and concerns. And then I find ever since the invention of the smartphone in 2009, most of us are at high risk for being in what I call maniac mode, being in a reactive mode. And one of the books is just an ebook. You don't even have to read it. You just scan it. You scan these 9 habits that are basic, fundamental time management habits that create white space on people's calendars. Who here would like to have more white space on their calendar? All of us. And then it tells you what to do with that space, to how to think strategically about certain issues. And it's so powerful. And then the 9th habit is called strategic think time, to close the gap between where you are and where you want to be, because that's always a tension in there. And I call it the creative tension think time. And that's how I got out of Mississippi, and that's how I got out of my miserable CPA career, taking that strategic think time. And then just all of that leads to designing some more thoughtful and decisive strategic actions. If we can make strategic decisions and we can take more strategic action, narrowing the focus. So many organizations today have so many priorities, and just creating a win-win-win mindset. And just bringing that discipline in. My methods do requires a little bit of discipline, not like you have to be rigid, but just that you have to do some habits daily, just basic fundamental time management habits. So let's talk about the training that you all have been selling over the 20 plus years that your Directions has been so successful. As I understand, it's mostly the technical skills, the hard skills that are required to do technical jobs. But so many of these are going to be altered or even replaced through automation and artificial intelligence and the robots. And the people that are going to excel are the people that are going to have the soft skills. So these are my definitions of the skills and abilities required to be successful in your job now and in the future. And I'll point out some of the ones I did not have when I was a CPA. So listening, speaking, influencing, collaborating, just being able to communicate in those environments, demonstrating empathy, caring for other people, and showing concern, and bringing that creativity and that innovation. I brought that in spades, but because I was working in CPA environments, they were like, well, Catherine, we've always done it this way. So they didn't really appreciate it. It wasn't welcomed. And then the willingness to have difficult conversations and the skills to facilitate those difficult conversations. Because I'm from Mississippi, my method is so soft and so easy. I haven't met any professional yet who really wanted to sign up for a crucial conversation or a fearless conversation. These are so soft, and you're going to see some of these tools today. And then just bring in a positive mindset, an ability to sustain that positive mindset. I just saw something today where people can only stay motivated for 2 or 3 days and they fall off the wagon. And then being flexible and adaptable. Y'all know what that looks like, I'm sure. And of course, ability to juggle multiple projects within short time frames. So when you take those skills that we all need to have today, and you overlay that remote work environment on them, they're even more critical, because we're not meeting in the hall. We're not running into people at the coffee bar. We have to be conscious and intentional about engaging people in more meaningful and effective ways, in more consistent ways, by bringing all these things. Otherwise, projects can go sideways quickly, in my experience. So let me just go backwards. So any questions about any of that? Does that make sense? And can you see that even in your own role, how you're being called on to bring more of that? Yeah, Eric says it. Yeah. Yeah. So these are the 3 courses that we're gonna that I'm gonna present to Directions Training's clients. First, we're gonna do the, like Haley said, a 1-hour webinar starting this Friday, and then over the next few months we'll do more. And then if we can sell them, fill those slots with enough people, then we'll deliver a 2-day course. And the first one is to move away from your devices. 4 key ways to get out of that maniac mode, create this white space on your calendar, and lead with your vision. Be intentional. When we're in reactive mode, somebody else has control over our destiny, but you all deserve to have control over your own destiny, but that requires a little strategic think time and getting a little clearer about what you really want to create. And then the second one is 3 steps of creating a work environment where everyone steps up and speaks up. And that's the one we're going to do a little mini course on today. And then the last one, 5 keys to bring out the best in your team. And Jennifer really wanted this to be able to offer something to those frontline managers and supervisors, people who are for the first time being promoted into a supervisory role. We want to set them up for success. So here we are with our mini course. So 3 steps of creating a work environment where everybody steps up and speaks up. That's what just occurred organically in my clients starting 25 years ago when I formed my firm. And it was because I was bringing this soft, gracious Mississippi style to the leadership team, and then they were able to bring that to their employees. It wasn't like I set out to do this. I didn't know how it was going to work. So why do we need these work environments? And the question I have for you all today is, who's ever had to experience a fire drill? And I think the real question is, who's had to experience a fire drill this morning? We have so many fire drills in the workplace. Anybody want to own up to that? So,
I mean, I'd be happy to share, Catherine.
Yes.
I think that
Thanks.
in our role, we can handle a fire drill within our own scope, but
Yeah.
it's important where we are able to incorporate feedback and guidance from other departments to help us with that fire drill.
Yeah.
You know, because one hose on the fire isn't as much help as many hoses on the fire. And I think that creating the work environment where everyone's able to contribute certainly helps to give a bigger scope of it and how we can work together. So that's my thought.
Beautifully stated, beautifully stated. And following up on that, I believe that when a problem is going to occur, or when a strategic initiative is not going to be successful, or a team or a project is not going to be successful, in my experience, there were always red flags. There were always key indicators, the metrics, or somebody knew, some frontline accountant, engineer, software developer, someone knew, some frontline HR clerk, they knew that we were either at risk or potential risk. But often people in management roles are moving so fast during their workday that they don't really create that environment where people feel safe to step up and speak up. And even when they do, often those people can't really be heard because they're frontline people. They're like, oh yeah, Bob, that's a good idea. But nobody takes them seriously. So what we have to do is slow ourselves down, slow our work environment down, so that we can connect those dots when Bob says something, or when we see a metric, and say, I wonder what Bob meant when he's brought that up in the committee meeting the other day, or I wonder what this metric means. Maybe I need to dig a little deeper. So these fire drills, in my experience, can all be prevented when they're going to still pop up, but let's get them when they're just like a little burning ember, not a whole bonfire. So the solution is what I'm going to share with you. So the three key steps are, first, to communicate your vision. Have a vision, whether it's a project vision or a team vision or a vision for each of your colleagues on your team, Betty Sue, Bob, Billy Joe. And then to communicate that vision clearly, concisely, and consistently, continually. We have to continue. People have to hear things over and over and over till they can really see how they fit into them. And then create a safe environment where people feel like they can fail, that they can take some measured risk. And then build on what is working instead of beating ourselves up. It's human nature for all of us to beat ourselves up. And then it sort of can translate to a team environment where we're beating each other up. But let's build on what is working and have a very powerful tool that I'm going to share with y'all to do that. So, like I said, we got to communicate this vision clearly, concisely, and consistently. We cannot take a day off from communicating that vision. And it could just be a vision that you developed, a manager, a supervisor developed on the back of a napkin or on a Post-it note or an index card. It doesn't have to be a big strategic planning thing, but just like what have I been charged with, and what would be a win-win-win if I could wave a magic wand. And like I said, it could be for your piece of the organization. It could be for your current role. Each of you that are individual contributors in the sales organization, you could have a vision for your own role, the impact you want to have, and the influence you want to have over your clients. And then you could do one for each of your people if you're in a supervisory role. What do I want for Bob? And then the current project that you're working on, what would be a win-win-win? What if our clients could win? What if the people that participate in the training could win? What if Directions Training could win? What if I could win? And then you have to engage people in this shared vision. Otherwise, it's not going to go anywhere. So how you do that is you share it consistently. In 100% of your discussions, you bring it up. Whether it's just a face-to-face over the phone or over Zoom, or when we're back in a work environment in the hallway, or if you could start your emails, as you know, my goal for this project is blah, blah, blah. Bring it into presentations people make. This is not difficult, and it helps bring people narrow their focus. So people like Catherine, who are creative people, innovative people, sometimes we can't tell an idea from a good idea. We think they're all good ideas. So when you're constantly communicating the vision for this project, it takes those people that might be at risk for being the crazy makers and getting off message and off plan. It's a way to give them the structure to bring themselves back. Does that make sense? Yeah, not rocket science. And then the third thing is that the person who's asking the questions is the person who's providing the leadership. So like I said, it could be the frontline people, it could be the summer intern because they coming into a situation with fresh eyes and they just don't know. But hopefully sometimes it's the leaders asking the questions. And so these are just a few sample questions to get people to engage with your vision for the team. What does this vision really mean to you? And I know some leaders who will ask that in just a regular staff meeting once a week or once every 2 weeks. Hey, Bob, today I'm going to ask you to just take a minute and share, what do you think our team vision means to you? And how do you see yourself in this vision? That's the key. If people think, oh, that's just all pie in the sky, it doesn't really relate to me, then they're not going to buy into it. They're not going to give you 250%. But if they do understand why their role is so important to fulfilling on this vision, then they will literally give you 250%. And by the way, you can use this stuff at home, in your community, at your church, whatever. This is not rocket science, and it works in all environments. But just coming up with that shared vision. Who here has worked with people that you felt like you had personality conflicts with, or there was just a lot of pettiness or inappropriate, immature stuff? That's because there was not a shared vision. When you have that shared vision, it like raises everybody up. There's no space for that pettiness or that mean girl stuff, the junior high behavior. People bring their best self because they see the vision for themselves. They see how important their role is. They see themselves in that vision, and then all that pettiness stuff just goes away. And then the second key is to provide this leadership that creates a safe space. So there's just a couple of things about this. And by the way, this is no different than parenting for those of you who are parents. You'll be a better parent if you can adopt some of these. So first is to listen and be curious. It's so hard, especially if you have a toddler. It's just constant questions, constant questions. But just to try to find some moments during the day where you can really genuinely, authentically listen with curiosity. And the way that I find it's most easy to bring that kind of listening is to keep saying how fascinating. Sometimes I'll say how fascinating 1,000 times a day, because it's certainly not what I had anticipated would happen. It's not what I had hoped would happen. It's not what I expected to happen, but it is fascinating because we're learning something here. There's growth opportunities for me and all the parties involved. How fascinating. So, for instance, when you blow up at somebody because they didn't meet your expectations, there's often reasons for that, and that's what all the 3 of these courses are about: getting clear in your own mind what your expectations are and being able to communicate and negotiate those expectations. But let's just pretend somebody lets you down. If you say in your head, even just in your head, not even out loud, "This guy's an idiot, what were they thinking?" then that puts up a brick wall between you and that other person. But when you say how fascinating, you have workability. It creates a space for them to say, "Oh, this is not so bad. We'll figure this out together." And on that note, this is a really key piece of creating that safety, is to take on the mindset of a scientist and treat everything as an experiment. So think about how scientists run experiments. They gather data, they draw some conclusion or come up with some theory or premise based on what the data shows, and then they conduct their experiments to prove or disprove their theory or their premise, their conclusion. Well, even if they get covered in black soot, they still believe it was a successful experiment. It's like, oh, that's not the right formula. Let's pull the team together with a whiteboard and go over every little factor and see which ones we need to tweak to get better results. And if leaders can do this too, you're going to get genius level innovation out of this, because people are going to feel safe to experiment. And then that big pie chart, if that represents all the data and information that's available in the world today, most of us stay in that space of what we don't know, we don't know. We know what we know, and we know what we don't know. Like, I know I'm not going to ever be a nuclear physicist, just not in the cards for me. So I know I don't know that. But the place that our creativity and our innovation lies is in what we don't know, what we don't know. To try to stay in that space. I don't know the solution to bringing out the best in Betty Sue, but let me sit with a blank screen for 10 minutes and think about, when has she been her best self? What has motivated her? What does she get fired up about? When is she most energized? And make a list of those, and you'll start to see patterns and trends. And then you can give her more of those things and fewer of the things that make her so darn cranky. So what this does is it helps you create those experiments, and then you have to share that with your team. We don't know what the solution to this project is. We don't know. We know what the outcomes we want, but we don't know how we're going to get there. So be vulnerable, be authentic, but establish parameters so people know, okay, we can tolerate this much risk in the area of time frame, or we can anticipate that we could go, have these variables for the budget on this project, but let's try to stay within those. Let's monitor our project so in a way so that we know when we're at risk for bumping up against one of those parameters. And then, of course, continually asking questions. Like I said, the person who's asking the questions is the person who's providing the leadership. And especially you all are professional salespeople. I am not a professional salesperson. So you all know that better than me. The people that are asking the questions are driving the conversation. And as a salesperson, you're probably really skilled at that. So the third key is to celebrate the successes instead of letting people beat each other up about what's not working. So I call these acknowledgments. We're used to giving people compliments, and we're used to seeing them blow those off, like they don't internalize them, they don't own them, they don't step into them. They'll say, oh, it's no big deal, it's just doing my job, or oh, this old thing, when you say, oh, it's a beautiful sweater or whatever. So these are a little bit different. These are based on the facts. And you tell people how what they've done has made a difference for you or for your client or for your team. And they're really the key to this workplace where everybody feels encouraged and engaged and empowered. And I find, well, first of all, who here has ever worked with a crazy maker in the workplace? Everybody's smiling. So I believe, and it's been my direct experience, that when a person is a crazy maker, it's because they have a need to feel validated, to feel appreciated, to feel listened to. And for all of us, that need is just above food and shelter and safety. It's just a fundamental need we all have. But guess what? None of us ever talk about these needs. And for a crazy maker, they have had the need fester for so long. It's really not a pretty situation. But I have seen over and over and over in my life and in my clients' lives, when they'll take the time to acknowledge one of these crazy makers, and often they're the person on the team that you don't want to acknowledge because they're making you crazy. But when you take the time to really think about what's going to motivate them, what's going to inspire them, where are they adding value, and you acknowledge them for that, even in private, I've seen them turn themselves around 180 degrees. It's crazy. Just such a simple little thing. So let's talk more about what it is. Like I said, it's got to be based on the facts, not just your opinion, because people don't internalize your opinion, and it has to leave that person with that sense of feeling appreciated and valued. And you have to give them an explanation, a specific explanation of how what they've done for you or another person or the organization or whatever has made a difference. How did that make a difference? You have to tell them specifically to get them so that they can internalize it. So for individuals, like I said, helps them get their needs met, to feel valued, appreciated, be part of something bigger than ourselves. I think that's a basic human need that we all have. And many people, not everybody, but many people do enjoy public recognition. So that's what it does for an individual. And these are the kind of questions I ask people to think about in the longer workshops. You know, who could you acknowledge? Who should you be acknowledging? What specifically did they do? This is an example of a little strategic think time exercise in my ebook. It's not directly in my ebook, but there's 3 different examples. So this is like a 4th example of what you could do with that strategic think time as you start to create that white space on your calendar. Who should I acknowledge? What did they do? When did this occur? If you can think about when it occurred, like I was in the hall or we were on the Zoom call, it helps you re-presence that person by sharing that. Remember, we were on the call last week with that client and blah, 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 and then you did this. And then think specifically about how they accomplished that. And you might even tell them, you know, why what they did was important to the whole team or the whole organization. And then for a team, it builds so much trust. It builds connections. The people that acknowledge each other start to feel a closer connection. They have more trust, more mutual respect. They find it easier to go to those other colleagues and ask for help. And then it helps people see what's possible for the team. Like, we're doing great, but gosh, we could even be doing better if we did more of these success factors here that we're being acknowledged for. So it helps you build on what is working, and it trains people to replicate the successes that they got. Oh, because they're going to want more acknowledgments. They're going to want to keep those acknowledgments flowing. And the people that don't get the acknowledgments are going to try to replicate that team because they're like, we deserve some acknowledgments too. And as a leader, it gives you the ability to reinforce your expectations. So you acknowledge what is working, your expectations and your standards. And then the people, again, the people that are not being acknowledged, they have a wake-up call, like, oh, I better start to meet those same expectations. So again, the action guide. Oh, I think I went too far. Oh no, this is right. So for whole organization, y'all can acknowledge the entire directions training organization. Um, and this is so powerful because by celebrating the successes as an organization, it gives you a chance to hit the pause button. It's just human nature in any company, organization to push, push, push. Let's push through to the next one. Okay, we met that goal, but let's push through to the next goal. Let's push through to the next project. Now let's hit the pause button for just 5 minutes and celebrate the success, because it gives you the ability then to articulate what were those factors. I call them success factors. What were the factors that brought us to this point, and how might we replicate those and duplicate those in every team across the entire organization? And like I said, it gives you the ability to build on what is working instead of berating each other and beating each other up about what is not working. When I was a CPA, I had a conversation in my head. Studies show we have about 50,000 conversations a day. But mine was the same conversation. And it was a conversation I started having when I was about 15 years old with my dad, because my dad didn't have the maturity to acknowledge the role that I was playing, helping him and my mom raise their other 3 younger children, getting them to the Little League games on time and to the ballet practices, making sure they had what they needed. So I was doing all that. Plus I was working every afternoon. So I was constantly leaving the office to go run these errands. And it was pretty much the glue that was holding everything together in our household. And they really couldn't acknowledge that. And my dad couldn't acknowledge me for what I was doing in the workplace. He just saw, I think, women and children as, property that he could use for his own purposes. So God bless him. So I developed an unmet need to get credit because of him. And I can remember the instance it happened. I stomped my foot in our living room. And I said to him, you don't give me credit for anything I do around here. And I took that credit into the that need into the workplace. And so I was always volunteering for every committee, every difficult project, every difficult client. And I was working long hours. And so who I was being because of those long hours was not somebody that was ever going to get any credit. And so how I coped with that was every time my boss in a team meeting or in a project meeting, or they would just drop by my cubicle or my office and they would say things like, well, we're going to launch this project soon and this is how we're going to do it. And I would say completely inauthentically, I would say, oh, that's a great idea. And then in my head, the conversation I would have would go something like this: you idiot. So we have to help people get their needs met. We just have to. It's going to make things so much smoother and make, I was always so at risk for judging other people, and mostly my boss, but other people too, to some degree. And so these acknowledgments are so powerful. There are other people in your workplace that have as much baggage as I had. It's just called life. People have baggage. But, the question is, do we have the awareness to work through our baggage? And by giving people acknowledgments, it starts to help them feel better about themselves. It's, of course, an internal, inside job. They have to value themselves ultimately. But by you expressing these acknowledgments, it helps them down that path. And most importantly, in the workplace, people sit up and they take on more ownership and more initiative. And they feel safer to say, I got a concern about this project. So it brings it all together. So we have a few minutes. Does anybody want to take advantage of this opportunity to either acknowledge the whole organization or acknowledge each other on the call, or acknowledge somebody that's not on the call, but you want to practice building some muscle for when you get off the call, you could call them and acknowledge them? Anybody want to do that since we have a minute or two?
I think this is a great example of what we do in our organization. We do what's called WOWs. And so this is something that we do on a regular basis. And then also, I do feel that we do a great job of promoting the culture and celebrating each other's accomplishments through technology tools like Teams, through email, through all that good stuff. So I think technology has helped organizations to even do this even more, even LinkedIn, all that good stuff. So I think it's certainly something that has resonated in our culture for quite some time.
That's so great. That's so great. And that's probably why we're here today, you know, because it did resonate for Jennifer and Haley that, yeah, we could bring this to our customers, the methods that we're using.
Yeah, I think, Catherine, that like Kristen said, we really, I think we could always do better. You're never at your best, but I think we do a really good job with acknowledging our team, acknowledging successes through the wows, and also just, sharing what we're grateful for, and really bringing that grateful feeling into our beings, because that's really where everything starts, right?
That's right. That's right. And it's hokey, but I'm from Mississippi, so I don't mind saying it. Gratitude equals great attitude. And it's true. When you can express gratefulness to another person, or just for, having the resources like Microsoft Teams to, do your job and do it effectively and be able to acknowledge other people quickly and easily. When we can express that gratitude, it is going to help us sit up straighter, take more ownership, more initiative, and just feel better about ourselves.
Agreed. Yeah. And I think, our team does a really good job with working with each other, because, in the past, sales operations always had this friction, because sales would promise everything and operations like, how am I going to deliver this? But in our culture, in our organization, I think we've really done a good job where operations and sales really work well together.
Congratulations. That's huge. That's huge to break down those silos.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think what contributes to some of that is obviously, creating that environment, like you said, that where they feel comfortable to kind of address things with us, but also from our side, just being transparent. I think that that's really, really important. Like, I'm not trying to hide anything. We're all working towards the same goal. Here's maybe how we dropped the ball. So I mean, I think bringing that form of transparency to the table has helped and build the relationship for sure.
Yes, definitely.
Well, and I was going to throw in, one of the things that I really like about the organization is that we do focus a lot on what is working, or what are some other ideas on how to achieve our goals. And I think it's important to have that environment where it is okay to try new things and, feel like you're contributing, and not necessarily, to your point, not having people point out what's not working, or making that the main focal point, but talking about what is working. That
Right.
just I mean, I don't think anyone I've worked at places in the past, and where it feels like it's just kind of like, oh no, like, what am I going to get yelled at about today? Even though, like, I'm just, we're trying to do like our best and achieve the same goal.
Yes. Love that so much. Congratulations on what y'all built. And I'm sure that's why Jennifer wanted to be able to find somebody like me that could help y'all bring these tools to y'all's clients so they could replicate y'all's successes. We just desperately need workplaces like this. Desperately.
Catherine, I wanted to say that, as you were going through your presentation, I've been in a lot of diversity and inclusion meetings lately, because it's a hot topic, and, it's what companies are thinking about. But I think what you have here is very much inclusion. Make sure that everyone has a voice, everybody's heard, everybody's opinion is validated, whether you agree with it or not.
Right.
You need people to feel inclusive, because that creates innovation.
That's right. When people feel included, they will give you 250% of their, capacity, and they will work hard, and they will speak up. They will say, I got a concern. Because all of those bonfires, they started as a burning ember, but then people didn't feel safe or included, and so they just let it slip. We'll just, let you go down that path, sweetheart, and see how well that works for you. So what workplace does not need more of this? Open, honest communication, people taking personal responsibility, increased productivity, enhanced teamwork, being able to execute on time and budget, being able to know, yes, my team can deliver this, and having what you all have, this organizational wide alignment. It's not just alignment within the sales organization or alignment within the operations, it's alignment across the whole organization, and eliminating all those judgments and conversations in our head like mine, like guy's an idiot, by saying how fascinating 1,000 times a day. So let's talk about the practical aspects of you all helping us engage people in this. So that my ideal clients are the best people, are the people that know they need help. You know, people in roles where they know their team is not performing, and you can pitch this to clients at any level. The frontline people that you've sold training to before for themselves, team leaders, managers, executives. This applies at the board level all the way down to the boiler room. No one everybody can benefit from this. And certainly people that are in pain because people aren't delivering, but those are that's the low-hanging fruit. So as you think about your clients, think about people that have expressed concern and know they need help. So any questions about either content or the other workshops, or how I can support you all in the sales process?
I think one thing that maybe would benefit us, Catherine, is a list of questions that the salespeople can kind of ask to uncover the opportunity. So, you know, how are your teams doing? Do you find that they work together? Are there any challenges in getting to your budgets? You know, just generally, maybe a list of a few questions that they can start that conversation.
Love it. I can send that when we get off the call.
Great.
I have a question, Catherine. So oftentimes what we see when we're going through a training solution in our first phase of scoping out with the manager or one of the stakeholders is that they have challenges with getting their users or their learners buy-in, right? So we can certainly provide all of that information and certainly help with the ROI, but oftentimes for them, it's okay, how do I get these people to be held accountable and really see value in showing up for training classes? So do you have anything in terms of that we could present to customers as something that could help them?
Yes, and I can add that to the questions too, because we can't beat people up with a stick. I try to do that and it just never worked. All we can do is invite people and inspire people. So we have to have some of those questions be inspirational questions. Like, what do you want for your career? What do you want for your next role? Or what do you want so that you can be more successful today or this week or this month? So I'll put that. That's a really good point, Kristen. So that those decision makers can inspire their people to want to do it instead of forcing them. You have to go on Friday to this, you know, training. We don't want that, because then they're just not going to be engaged at all.
Right. It's just like anything else. The learner has to meet the instructor halfway, right? Like just going back to a grammar school situation, right? Or with kids, the learner has to meet the instructor halfway. So oftentimes when we're putting together those proposals and we're finding out, you know, what does success look like, they need help with that. So it's good to kind of gear that conversation and provide them with guidance.
Yeah, exactly.
And we say learning is a partnership. It's not, you know, just one or the other. We have to work together to get to the success results.
That's right.
Would love to hear from the rest of the team. What other thoughts do you have? Questions? I guess they don't have any questions. You just.
The one thing that I was thinking early on when you showed the pie chart is just the importance of knowing that there's a lot that I don't know.
Yeah.
And, you can never ask a client or even just someone in your life that you're interacting with enough questions to get like a better picture of what problems they're trying to solve and what they're up against.
Right, right, exactly. If we can just adopt that mindset, not 24/7, of course, because you all have expertise in certain areas, but just periodically, like at the beginning of a call with a client, ask some of those open-ended questions.
Hey, Catherine, this is Eric. I thought that was an excellent presentation. Thank you for sharing that insightful. I would definitely agree with Kristen. Anything that we can do to help drive the narrative of what we're hoping to accomplish by asking some poignant and insightful questions to get them to really open up and talk, because we certainly do ask many, many questions. We're trying to find out as much information as possible and really kind of form and architect a strategy around that.
Beautiful, yes. I'll send that to y'all shortly. And I thought it might be helpful if I sent you, because my next slide is about how could I support y'all. I thought I would send you the PDFs of my 2 books. The big book is only a 2-hour read, and it's just 5 little chapters, and it's a beautiful overview of all of my content. And then the other book, like I mentioned, is an ebook, and it's about 29, 30 pages, but you don't have to read them. You just scan the table of contents, and you see which one of those 9 habits pops off the page at you, and you say, oh, I think I want to experiment with that. And so you click on it, it takes you to that page, and it's in, a half a page to a page and a half of tips about how to use that habit more effectively and more consistently. So again, not anything that's going to be like a textbook that you'd have to read. My book has a lot of stories. So I'll include that with the questions. How about?
That'd be great.
That would be great.
Is there anything else I can do?
So while they're thinking, I just wanted to remind everyone that we do, like I said at the beginning, have 3 upcoming webinars. The first one is on October 9th. That's the move away from your devices. Then we have the 3 steps to creating a work environment where everyone steps up and speaks up, which, Catherine gave us a little sneak peek into today. That's in November, on November 13th. And then we have the 5 keys to bringing out the best in your team in December. We already have a schedule posted on the site for each of these courses. So, obviously, Catherine will be talking about the full course in each of these webinars. So just wanted to let everybody know about that.
Yeah, what I'm trying to do in each of the 1-hour webinars is present a ton of content so they get a lot of great value. And then in the 2-day seminar that we'll also do via Zoom, we'll just add in a lot more exercises so they have a chance to put it into practice. The strategic think time exercises and the brain dump exercise, all those 9 habits and some other things, so that they get an experience of using them and they can know for sure what, what value, they can see immediately what value they get from doing those. And then Jennifer, brilliant, she's brilliant, I'm telling you. She had the idea that on the 2nd day, we would have like presentations. They would come together as cohorts and present to each other. This is what I learned, this is what I'm planning to put into effect, and this is my time frame, and these are the support structures I'm going to use so that I can be successful using these on an ongoing basis. So that's going to really internalize the learning. And then I've been doing this work now for 25 years. And in almost every case, whether I sold training or facilitation or consulting or coaching, in almost every case, I offered people a complimentary confidential consultation by telephone. So if you have a client who's on the bubble about sending their people to this course, and they're a good client and they're going to send a lot of people, you could certainly offer that. So keep that in mind. If if you have a client that's on the bubble, say, well, I think it'd be, great if I got Catherine on the phone for you to talk to confidentially and share these concerns with her. So I've done a million of those over the last 25 years, and they pretty much close people in that conversation.
And then you're able to customize the courses based on the group, right? So I think everybody knows that that's a big, strong sell for us, is that we really try to make it relevant and, what they're looking for. So
exactly.
is able to do that as well.
So the more y'all can gather that information or get me in front of the decision makers so that I can get that input from them. Of course, yeah, flexibility is my only firm policy. So we just got another 5 minutes or so, but I just wanted to share this little my bio with you because I didn't know what I didn't know 25 years ago about even the work that I would do. I was imagining that I would do a one-on-one coaching. That's what I was transitioning to. I was going to move from being a CPA to being a coach. But within 6 months, I started facilitating team events because I would say to the business owners, these are complicated issues and you should not be making a decision in a vacuum. Let's bring all your people together and brainstorm the best possible solutions. And then when we make a decision, it'll be their decision and they'll have buy-in and whatever. And then 6 months later, I started facilitating whole processes like exit planning, succession planning, new CEOs, whatever. But in every case, all I've done is help leaders and managers increase their effectiveness in engaging each other and their colleagues. And it doesn't take a lot of time or effort. And in many clients, the closely held companies like a Directions Training where I can get to the very top, those companies have consistently grown 2 to 3x using these simple, practical approaches. Everybody can agree today, this is not rocket science. These are simple and practical, but they're not, unfortunately, not everybody's like Directions Training. So any other questions before we wrap up today, or comments or concerns?
Catherine, you did an amazing job. Great job. Thank you for putting this together. We look forward to the webinars being very successful and getting some business.
Hold that vision of a lot of business.
That's right, we are. I think it's such an important skill today that, especially IT folks are missing. And so the more we can encourage them to have a full rounded skill set, they have the IT skill set, no question, they know what they're doing there, but sometimes to talk to C-level folks or to communicate better, we can all learn to communicate better, but these are areas they need help in.
Right. Well, we all do, and we need leaders, right?
Yep.
Well, it was a joy to be with all of y'all, and look for my email with the questions and the inspiring questions and the 2 ebooks.
Sounds great.
Thanks, Catherine.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thanks for being here.